When I was 5 months pregnant and diagnosed with cancer, Elroy was still taking care of his beloved Amy. He said, "Amy once saved my life. I can't just stand by and do nothing for her. You understand that, right? In the end, I died." Yet, he knelt in front of my body, filled with regret, saying he was sorry. When I was 5 months pregnant, I got my biopsy results: uterine cancer, late stage. The doctor recommended that I terminate the pregnancy and have my uterus removed for further treatment. I struggled to hold back my emotions, listening to the doctor's advice, my vision blurred with tears. I couldn't believe it, I didn't want to believe it. Suddenly, Elroy called. "I have something going on tonight, don't wait up for me. You're pregnant, make sure to get some rest." I stayed silent. I knew today was the day his beloved Amy was returning to the country. "I don't feel well, can you stay home?" "I'll try to come back early," he said gently, but he didn't ask what was wrong, and his tone was firm. "Elroy. I'm driving, I'll talk to you later." He never gave me much explanation, just like always. He decided things between us, just like he decided our marriage. We were childhood friends. I had loved him for years, but he always had Amy in his heart. I confessed my feelings countless times, and he rejected me just as many times. It wasn't until Amy married someone else and left that he finally settled and agreed to marry me. After we got married, I did everything I could to be a good wife. I catered to his preferences in every way possible. Over the 3 years we were together, I could feel his heart slowly opening up to me. Especially after I got pregnant, the normally cold and distant Elroy started showing concern for me. He would prepare gifts for my birthday or special occasions. Our relationship gradually improved, becoming sweeter. But just when everything seemed to be going well, life played a cruel joke on me. I was diagnosed with cancer, and the child I had longed for needed to be aborted. And the husband I had devoted my life to was now rushing to his beloved Amy, leaving his pregnant wife behind. That night, I woke up from a nightmare. In the dream, I was lying on a cold operating table, and at that moment, I seemed to hear the baby crying in pain. I woke up drenched in sweat, turning to see the empty, cold spot beside me. His promise to come home early was just an excuse. I forced myself to calm down and grabbed my phone to distract myself with some WeChat messages. At 11 p.m., Amy posted an Instagram update. "There's nothing like home after all these years." She was smiling in a selfie, and in the barely noticeable corner of the photo, there was a pair of hands intertwined. Even though only the fingertips were visible, I immediately recognized them. There was a small, white, cloudy spot on the index finger's nail, identical to Elroy's. At 2 a.m., Elroy finally came home. He moved quietly, trying not to wake me. When he went to shower, I deliberately turned over. "Sorry, did I wake you?" he asked, his voice still soft and apologetic. "Amy's back, isn't she?" I asked. "Yeah," Elroy replied with a slightly heavy voice, then added, "It's late, get some sleep. Can you stop seeing her?" He paused, then replied impatiently, "What are you worried about? Shouldn't you know the answer to that? Don't be unreasonable. Amy and I are over." Intertwined fingers, does that mean over? That was just a game. Chaya, it's late, stop making a big deal out of nothing. How ironic. I'll sleep on the couch tonight. Elroy slammed the bedroom door shut. It was the first time he had lost his temper with me since I got pregnant. Because of Amy. Because he was ashamed. After that brief argument, life between Elroy and I returned to normal. He was busy. He was always busy. I went to every prenatal checkup by myself. When I found out I had a tumor at the 4-month checkup, Elroy had no idea. Out of habit, I didn't want to worry him. I kept it to myself until I had more information, but now, looking back, I realize I was just a joke to him. Today, I went to the hospital again. I asked the doctor, "Can I keep the baby?" "No." "Can I wait until after the baby is born to have surgery?" "Your body can't wait that long." "How long do I have?" "A month or 2, but it's best to start treatment now." "I want to wait a little longer." I couldn't bear to give up the only child I would ever have. I wanted to spend more time with him, even if it was just one more day. And I wanted to wait for Elroy. Leaving the hospital, I called Elroy. "Can you come home on time tonight?" "Why?" he asked. "It's been a while since we had dinner together." "All right," he agreed. That meant our brief Cold War was over. As always, I was the one compromising in the end. Elroy came home on time. I made his favorite meal, and we quietly ate dinner together. Elroy. Just as I was about to say something, his phone rang, interrupting me. He got up, glanced at it, and then went out to the balcony to take the call. 5 minutes later, he came back, eating faster than before. "Something came up, I need to head out." "Is it Amy?" "No," Elroy replied heavily. "Can you stop being so suspicious all the time? I just want you to spend more time with me, and the baby. If you're bored during your pregnancy, you can invite your parents to stay with us, or you could go to their house. They can take care of you while I'm at work. It'd give me some peace of mind, too." I smiled faintly, bitter and amused. Without even looking at me, he headed for the door. "Let me know if you decide, and I'll take you over," he said, hurriedly putting on his shoes and leaving. I had seen it just now. When his phone rang, the name Amy flashed across the screen. Only Amy could make Elroy lie against his character, for her. And the words I had meant to say, "Elroy, can you stay with me for 2 more months, just 2 months?" remained unspoken. I wouldn't ask him again. That night, Elroy came home before 10 p.m. After showering, he lay down next to me and pulled me into his arms as I pretended to sleep. He smelled fresh, and his body was warm, pressed against my back. But my heart felt filthy and cold. The next morning, we had breakfast together. He complimented me, "Your porridge is still the best." I came from a well-off family, loved and spoiled by my parents. Elroy's family was also well-to-do. Our marriage was one of equals, but I had lowered myself more and more for him. The girl who had never lifted a finger in the kitchen had learned to cook all sorts of dishes just for him. For someone as picky as him, I even cured his dislike of vegetables. "Make an extra bowl for me next time." "I'll take it to work for lunch," Elroy said casually. "Porridge for lunch? My stomach's been bothering me these days. Porridge feels better," he explained, matter-of-factly. Okay, I agreed. Every day, I made porridge for Elroy and packed it for him to take to work. Elroy had been coming home on time recently. I didn't know if he had truly moved on from Amy, or if guilt was forcing him back to my side. In these last days, I chose to let bygones be bygones. But just when I thought I could open my heart to him again, I saw it. In his office, Elroy, with a tender smile, watching Amy eat the porridge I had painstakingly made for him. I looked down at my 5-month pregnant belly, remembering how I had woken up at 5 a.m. every morning, how I had compromised over and over again for him. Suddenly, it all seemed so ridiculous, and I couldn't help but laugh. Seeing me, Elroy's expression changed, panic flashing in his eyes. He walked toward me, trying to explain, but no words came out. "Chaya," Amy said instead, gracefully greeting me, "I've been meaning to thank you. The porridge you've been making for me has really helped my stomach. After just a few days, it feels so much better, nothing like that night when the pain made me cry." So that night, Amy's stomachache was why Elroy rushed to her side. So it turns out, Elroy's sudden closeness to me was just because of his guilty conscience. It turns out, among the 3 of us, I'm still the outsider. Did I say something wrong? Amy asked cautiously, her eyes brimming with tears as she noticed my expression change. Amy always looked so innocent and fragile, naturally stirring up people's protective instincts. Her life hadn't been particularly fortunate. We met Amy in middle school, when she transferred to our class. Back then, she was timid, lacking confidence, and always covered in bruises. Later, we found out it was because her alcoholic father often beat her. Later still, she somehow became the target of school bullying. Elroy saved her, and fell in love with her. In the end, a childhood friend couldn't compete with fate, and I suddenly became the third wheel. But Amy ended up marrying someone else. She went abroad. She said she wanted to get as far away from her family as possible. I'm sorry, Amy apologized to me, always with that timid, people-pleasing demeanor. As if everyone was bullying her, and she could only compromise with the world. I was tired of playing along with Amy. Especially since I never won, not once. I walked straight into the office, picked up the half-eaten bowl of porridge, and dumped it on Amy's head. Ah! Amy screamed, her face pale with shock. Chaya, what are you doing? Elroy roared, shoving me aside roughly. He must have forgotten I was 5 months pregnant. Or maybe he hadn't forgotten, he just didn't care, with his mind completely occupied by Amy. I leaned against the wall, suppressing the pain in my stomach, watching Elroy gently care for Amy. Slowly but surely, my heart, once filled with love, turned into cold, shattered pieces. I walked past them, indifferent. I could hear Amy crying, sobbing, Elroy, don't worry about me, Chaya is pregnant. Go check on her, I'm really fine. But her hand never let go of Elroy's shirt. My patience and kindness toward them had finally reached their breaking point. I had planned to endure for just 2 more months, and they could have their happy ending. Now, I regretted it. I wanted to make Elroy regret this for the rest of his life. I wanted both of them to pay for what they'd done. I went to the hospital. Elroy's shove hadn't done too much damage, but the doctor still urged me to consider having the surgery as soon as possible. When I got home, Elroy was sitting on the couch. There was a bouquet of flowers on the coffee table, along with a chocolate lava cake, my favorite. When he saw me, he stood up and walked over with the flowers. Chaya, I sincerely apologize for what happened today. I was going to tell you the porridge was for Amy, but I didn't because I didn't want you to get upset. I smiled. At that moment, my heart felt completely calm. I couldn't even remember the joy I used to feel when receiving his little gifts. But I still took the flowers and said, they're beautiful. I also bought your favorite cake, he said, placing it in front of me. Took a bite, it was sickeningly sweet. Ever since I got pregnant, I've hardly touched sweets. Elroy thinks I've forgiven him. In his mind, as long as he treats me a little better, I'd be grateful, maybe even in tears. After you left today, Amy cried a lot. She said she upset you, Elroy casually began. I kept eating my cake, showing no emotion. You know her background. She's always been sensitive, terrified of offending anyone. I didn't respond. I'm worried she's going to hold on to what happened today. Why don't you give Amy a call, just to smooth things over? Elroy spoke as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I looked up at Elroy. He must have sensed something was off, because he quickly started explaining and making promises. Chaya, this has nothing to do with Amy. It was my fault. I didn't handle things well, but I'll change, I swear. I noticed a hint of nervousness and embarrassment in his eyes. To think that I'd live to see Elroy groveling like this, should I be happy? How exactly are you going to change? By not seeing her anymore? Elroy froze for a second, then immediately raised his voice. Chaya, you have to understand. Amy saved my life once. How can I just abandon her? I laughed. When did Amy ever save his life? She's back now, all alone, abused by her ex-husband overseas, her health's terrible, and she's developed mild depression. I'm all she has. So, you see yourself as her savior? I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Chaya, when did you become so aggressive? How many times do I have to say it? I'm just taking care of Amy. I don't have those dirty thoughts you're imagining. And what about me? Don't I deserve to be taken care of? I asked calmly. You're fine. You don't need any help. And besides, don't you have your parents? I suggested you stay with them, but you refused. I stared at Elroy's familiar, yet suddenly foreign face. Elroy, whose husband are you, exactly? And do you remember that I'm pregnant? Do you even know that the baby inside me might not make it? In the end, I couldn't hold it in and blurted out everything. Elroy looked at me, shocked by my outburst. But in an instant, his expression turned cold. Chaya, you're so selfish. Just because you don't want me to care for Amy, you'd make up such lies and curse your own child. I'm telling the truth. Even if it's true, it just means the baby wasn't meant to be. Even if I stay by your side, it won't change anything. Elroy's voice was icy, devoid of empathy. I just looked at him. He kept pushing my limits again and again. Don't look at me like that. Chaya, I'm trying to make this work. I don't want you turning our home into a mess. Elroy enunciated every word clearly. Let's be honest. You were wrong to throw that porridge at Amy today. You should apologize. It's only fair. Elroy, after everything you've done to me, do you think one day you'll regret it? I asked him. Chaya, I've been more than good to you, Elroy replied firmly. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be here right now. So, what Elroy was really saying was that he was only staying with me because of his sense of responsibility. If it weren't for that, he'd be with Amy already. I'll dial the number for you. Once you apologize to Amy, this will be over. We won't bring it up again. I'm still your husband, and you're still my wife. Our marriage will continue, he said with a magnanimous air. And if I don't apologize? Does that mean our marriage ends here? I asked Elroy calmly. Elroy's eyes flashed with anger. Chaya, are you really going to push me like this? Aren't you just looking for a good reason to be with Amy? So you can leave your 5 months pregnant wife without guilt and run off with another woman? I'm giving you that reason now. Shouldn't you be happy? You're going to destroy whatever's left of our relationship. Elroy's face darkened to the extreme. And haven't you been doing the same? Elroy shot me a furious glare, then slammed the door on his way out. I watched coldly as he left, feeling utterly numb. That night, Amy posted again on Instagram. The picture was taken from her living room, capturing the full moon in the sky. There was a faint silhouette of someone standing on the balcony in the dark. You wouldn't notice unless you looked closely. Amy loved these little mind games. Her caption read, wishing for long-lasting happiness, even from 1,000 miles away under the same moon. In the end, I messaged her privately, let's meet tomorrow. She responded almost immediately, sure. The next day, we met at a cafe. It wasn't the first time we'd met in private. You didn't think I'd come back, did you? Amy sipped her coffee smugly. No, I didn't. Now that I'm back, you should divorce Elroy, Amy said, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Why should I? Because Elroy's always loved me. Amy smiled triumphantly. For a moment, I was speechless. I've never understood why you cling to Elroy. If he really loved you, would I even be in the picture? You're beautiful, your family's rich, there are plenty of good men out there. Why settle for Elroy? Amy's face was full of mockery. If he's so insignificant, why are you after him? Because I don't have a choice. Amy didn't even bother pretending in front of me. In her eyes, I was never her equal. I'm a divorced woman with no family background. Elroy's the only one who doesn't mind. I don't want to ruin your marriage, but how can I help it if he comes running whenever I call? It takes two to tango. Do you even love Elroy? I asked her. If I loved him, would I have married someone else? That whole story about leaving my family and going abroad, it was all a lie. I married that man because he was richer than Elroy. Amy admitted, completely unabashed. You knew that back in school, didn't you? Yes. I had known. But I hid it to protect Elroy's pride. The more I thought about it, the funnier it seemed. Elroy's blind. He can't see who really cares about him. But luckily, I'm determined to be with him now. So, Chaya, give up. You can't win against me. Amy had that confidence, anytime she wanted Elroy, she could have him. What she didn't know was that people change, especially someone with nothing left to lose. Is that so? I stared coldly at her gloating face. Did you forget? I'm pregnant. Amy's expression instantly darkened. Let's not even talk about how the law prohibits divorce during pregnancy. Do you really think Elroy will go against public opinion, ignoring moral judgment, and leave me to be with you? Amy's face grew colder. Or do you think after I have the baby, Elroy will abandon his wife for you? I continued mocking. Amy, I don't deny Elroy has feelings for you, but you came back too late. Amy clenched her jaw, at a complete loss for words. Check, please. I called for the waiter. After paying, I said to Amy, I've got your bill covered. Think of it as my way of paying you for taking care of Elroy while I'm pregnant. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving Amy seething behind me. Once I was out of her sight, I took a deep breath. I wasn't as calm as I had pretended to be. My hands shook as I pulled a voice recorder from my bag. But this wasn't enough. I needed more, much more. I was going to make Elroy suffer. When I got home, I called my best friend Ida. Ida and I had been friends since middle school, and she had known both Elroy and Amy back then. She had witnessed our messy love triangle and had tried many times to persuade me to let Elroy go, saying he wasn't worth it. But I was obsessed, like I'd lost my mind. Growing up, it wasn't like I hadn't met men better than Elroy. I just loved him. Maybe it was the feeling of not being able to let go. Unwilling. After loving him for so many years, there's nothing to show for it. Well, at least now, I've finally given up. Your birthday's coming up, right? I asked Ida. You finally remembered me? I thought after getting with that dog Elroy, you'd completely forgotten about me. Ida's tone was laced with frustration. Ida is a strong, career-driven woman, always busy, and still single. It's not like she doesn't have boyfriends, but none of them are long-term or serious. She despises marriage and believes in living beautifully on her own. That's why she's never understood why I gave up so much of myself for Elroy. I need you to do me a favor. Go ahead. I told her my request. She couldn't believe it. Are you serious? As if Amy isn't annoying enough already, and now you want me to invite her to my birthday party? I'll explain it to you later. I just don't get you. Ida sighed but gave in. Fine, next Wednesday evening. I'll send you the address. Thank you. Chaya, you can't lose all your self-respect just for a man. Ida hung up. Not anymore. Never again. On the day of Ida's birthday, I showed up, my belly visibly pregnant. Sure enough, Amy was there too, along with several of our old classmates. One classmate teased, "It's rare for you to invite us all. You've been so busy you couldn't even come to the class reunion." Ida, always gracious, laughed. Exactly. That's why I'm making it up to everyone by gathering us here. Tonight, don't be shy. Eat and play as much as you want. After a round of cheerful chatter, a classmate spotted me and asked, "Where's Elroy? How come you're here by yourself? Aren't you worried about coming alone with such a big belly?" Elroy had something else today and couldn't make it. We're all old friends, there's nothing to worry about. I smiled as I replied. Elroy's really something, isn't he? So many old friends here, and he's still a no-show, one classmate grumbled. What they didn't know was, I hadn't told Ida to invite Elroy at all. After a recent argument, Elroy and I were in a cold war, and I knew that as long as I didn't back down, he'd stay distant. Just before dinner, Elroy suddenly appeared. Everyone was surprised, except me. Aren't you not coming? One classmate asked Elroy. He didn't answer. Amy quickly stood up, a bit flustered. It was me. I texted Elroy, asking if he couldn't make it. I told him everyone was missing him. Ida's face dropped at the sight of Amy. I grabbed Ida's arm. She shot me a frustrated look. Seems like Chaya has a way with Elroy. One message, and here he is, a classmate joked, but then quickly changed the subject, realizing something felt off. Come on, Elroy, sit over here. They cleared the seat next to me. Elroy didn't refuse and sat down beside me. His expression was dark, and in a low voice, he asked me, "Why didn't you tell me about Ida's birthday? You're here now, aren't you?" I responded sarcastically. Chaya, the way you are right now is really ugly. I smirked. And you don't look so great yourself. Before Elroy could snap, another classmate called him over for a drink. He held back, leaving me ignored. He didn't say another word to me all night. Not that I cared. I got up to go to the bathroom, intentionally taking my time. Amy followed me in. She glanced around to make sure no one else was there, then dropped her sweet facade. You saw it yourself. The Elroy you can't call over, I can summon with just a flick of my finger. But he still sat next to me, I said casually, washing my hands. Amy's face twisted. I finished drying my hands and slowly walked past her. Suddenly, I felt a forceful shove from behind. With the slippery floor beneath me, I went straight down. There was a loud thud as I hit the ground hard. Pain shot through me, and then I felt a warm flow between my legs. Amy's panicked scream echoed in the bathroom. In no time, her voice drew a crowd. Elroy was among them. He looked at Amy, who was frozen in shock, and then at me, lying in a pool of blood. Finally, he knelt beside me, lifted me up, and shouted at everyone, "Call an ambulance, hurry." Ida immediately dialed for one. Elroy carried me out of the restaurant. All of our classmates followed us outside, waiting for the ambulance. Amy cried as she spoke, "It's all my fault. If I'd just paid more attention to Chaya, she wouldn't have slipped. If something happens to Chaya or the baby, I'll never forgive myself." She kept crying, her breakdown looking more dramatic than mine, even though I was the one in unbearable pain. "It's not your fault," Elroy's voice, slightly strained, sounded above me. "Chaya wasn't careful. If I wasn't in so much pain, I might have laughed." Still, she fell right in front of me. "Chaya, I'm so sorry, really," Amy kept apologizing in my ear. I was honestly worried that if I died, she might block my path to the afterlife. Luckily, the ambulance arrived. Elroy carried me onto the ambulance. Even while getting in, he didn't forget to instruct the others, "Watch over Amy. She's sensitive and tends to spiral. Don't leave her alone." "Elroy, are you coming or not?" Ida had already gotten into the ambulance and shouted back at him, swearing in frustration. Only then did Elroy follow. The ambulance raced toward the hospital. The doctor checked me over quickly. Elroy, anxious, asked, "Is the baby still okay?" "The bleeding is pretty severe. It's hard to say. We'll know more at the hospital." Elroy nodded silently and asked no more questions. Ida, her eyes red with worry, said, "Chaya, you knew you were pregnant. How could you be so careless?" I was in too much pain to respond. But in that moment, I still turned my gaze toward Elroy. Ida, unable to bear my lovesick expression, reluctantly indulged me. "Elroy, Chaya's calling for you." Elroy rushed to my side, his face filled with genuine concern and fear, likely shocked by the sight of all my blood. "Don't worry, I'm here. Everything's going to be fine." "Elroy, do you still want this baby?" I asked, struggling to get the words out. Elroy froze for a moment. So, he's hesitating. When we first found out I was pregnant, I clearly saw the joy in his eyes. After all, we were at the age where we should be having children. But now, he's unsure. "Don't think too much. Everything will be okay," Elroy dodged my question, offering only empty reassurance. "Without this baby, you can finally be with Amy without guilt." "What are you talking about?" Ida cut me off. "You're in no shape to be thinking like this. Save your energy for the surgery." I kept staring at Elroy. He reluctantly said, "There's nothing going on with Amy. I married you, I'll take responsibility. Just rest." But when we arrived at the hospital, Elroy turned to leave. "Elroy, can you at least act like a decent human being?" I heard Ida's furious outburst just as I was being lifted from the ambulance. The doctors and nurses rushed me toward the emergency room. Elroy turned and walked the other way. "I'll be right back. I need to call Chaya's parents, they're on their way here," he said quickly. "Where the hell are you going? Your wife is in this condition, and you're running off?" Ida grabbed him, refusing to let him leave. I couldn't help but laugh, and as I did, tears started to fall. It wasn't because I was heartbroken. It was just the pain. The pain was so unbearable, I had my first real thought of wanting to die. Maxine just called and said that Amy is very emotionally unstable. She's been blaming herself ever since Chaya fell. Right now, she's wandering on the highway, refusing to come back, and almost got hit by a car several times. I'm going to pick her up and take her home. I'll be back as soon as I settle her down, Elroy explained. No way. Ida screamed. What does Amy have to do with you? If she wants to throw a fit, let her. Chaya is your wife. You need to stay with her right now. Ida, this is between Chaya and me. Stay out of it. Elroy was clearly angry, raising his voice at Ida. You really think Amy's some kind of saint? Back in the day, she was deliberately seducing you. All that talk about being bullied was just a play she put on herself. Enough. I don't need you to tell me what kind of person Amy is. Elroy wasn't listening to a word Ida said. Fine, go if you want. Ida was done wasting her time on Elroy. But only if Chaya agrees to let you leave. Elroy gritted his teeth and rushed toward me, grabbing my hand tightly. I looked at him, his eyes were red with urgency. At that moment, all I wanted was to pull my hand away from his. I don't know why, but suddenly I felt disgusted. Chaya, I'll be right back, I swear. Your parents will be here soon, and you'll be fine, Elroy said anxiously. How do you know? I'll be fine? I asked him painfully, holding back the physical ache. And why are you so sure something will happen to Amy? You're in the hospital. There are doctors all around you, so you're going to be okay. But Amy, she only has me. Only him? Elroy, do you know, the place where most people die is in a hospital, I said quietly. You won't die. It's a simple procedure, even if the baby doesn't make it, it doesn't matter. What if I don't want you to go? Chaya, can you stop being so selfish? I've told you before, Amy saved my life. I can't just stand by and do nothing. If something happens to her, I will never forgive myself. Elroy was losing his temper. He had no patience left for me. Even though I was about to be rushed into emergency surgery. If I die, will you feel at peace then? Stop pushing me. Elroy snapped, his voice rising. No matter what happens today, I have to see Amy first. You've already made up your mind, so what else can I say? Elroy, just don't regret it later. I will never regret it. Elroy didn't hesitate. He ran out. So eager. So desperate. Elroy was gone. He left quickly. Ida was furious, her eyes red with rage. She looked at me, both angry and heartbroken. Why did you let him go? Look at you. A heart that wants to leave can't be held back. What's the point in keeping him here? At least make life difficult for those two scumbags. Ida was always the type who believed, if I can't be happy, I won't let you be happy either. He won't be happy, I said softly. But if I forced him to stay, and something happened to Amy, Elroy would hate me forever. If it was the other way around, he'd feel the same. The medical staff pushed me to the door of the operating room. Ida held my hand, repeating over and over, Chaya, don't be afraid. I'll be right outside waiting for you. There are plenty of men in this world. Elroy is not worth it. Ida, I have something for you. With difficulty, I pulled a USB drive from my clothes. What is this? Just keep it. I didn't explain further. But handing it to Ida gave me peace of mind. Ida clenched the USB tightly in her hand, tears welling up as she looked at me. I was pushed into the operating room. I looked calmly at the bright surgical lights above, suddenly filled with a premonition. A premonition that I didn't have much time left. The truth is, when I was diagnosed with late-stage uterine cancer, I asked the doctor, if I give up the baby, have my uterus removed, and go through chemotherapy, how long can I live? The answer wasn't reassuring. The doctor said it varies from person to person. Some live a few more years. Some die on the operating table. I knew I was the latter. In my dazed state, I vaguely heard the doctor's anxious voices, probably trying to save me. But I could no longer feel the world around me. In the final moment of losing consciousness, I wondered, if Elroy knew I would really die here, would he regret it? Elroy's perspective, side story. Chaya accidentally fell and got pregnant. I rushed her to the hospital, but I got a call from a classmate, saying that Amy was in an unstable emotional state. Amy had a tough upbringing, which made her introverted, withdrawn, timid, sensitive, and suspicious. But Chaya was different. She grew up in a privileged, loving family. There was no way she would ever consider doing something drastic. Even without me by her side, she would still have lots of care and support from others. That's why I never thought I should spend more time with her. Amy needed me more. What I never anticipated was that in this world, people still die from illness. I never thought Chaya would actually die on that operating table. At the time, I was at Amy's place, calming her down as she cried uncontrollably all night. I felt so sorry for her that I almost forgot Chaya was still in surgery, until Ida called. On the other end of the line, Ida's voice was hoarse. She said, "Elroy, congratulations. The baby's gone." In that moment, I felt a sharp pain in my heart. I had already thought about the possibility of losing the baby. When Chaya was rushed to the hospital, she had lost so much blood, it was clear the baby wouldn't make it. I didn't even know if I wanted the baby or not. But I was certain that if the baby was gone, I would have more leverage to divorce Chaya and be with Amy. Amy hadn't said it outright, but I could feel that she had come back this time because she wanted to get back together with me. So when Chaya asked me in the ambulance if I still wanted the baby, I didn't give her a straight answer. Now that the baby's really gone, my heart felt empty. Happy now? Now you can be with Amy without any guilt. Ida's voice was full of sarcasm. The baby wasn't lost because of me. Ida, I know you're Chaya's best friend, but what goes on between Chaya and me is our business. You have no right to interfere. Your business? Ida laughed coldly. Through her laughter, I thought I heard a sob. I still don't understand what Chaya ever saw in you, Elroy. Be honest with yourself, are you really worthy of her? That's enough, Ida. What happens between Chaya and me is none of your concern. I know how to comfort her now that the baby's gone. You don't need to. Ida's voice was quiet. Chaya doesn't need you anymore. Ida. I was furious. What gave her the right to interfere with my relationship with Chaya? Chaya's dead. I froze. For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. It was like being struck by lightning out of the blue. Elroy, you're free now. Ida hung up the phone. I stood there, still holding my phone, my whole body stiff. I couldn't describe what I was feeling, only that it hurt, a deep, unbearable pain that spread through my whole body. How could this be possible? How could Chaya be dead? Modern medicine is so advanced, it's just a miscarriage, right? Elroy, what's wrong? Amy came out onto the balcony, her voice full of concern. Why are you crying? Did something happen? Was I crying? I hadn't realized that tears had started streaming down my face. I turned to leave immediately. Elroy, where are you going? Amy grabbed me. You promised to stay with me tonight. If you leave, I'll be scared, she said, looking pitiful. Amy always triggered a protective instinct in me. She could make me drop everything and take care of her. But right now, all I felt was annoyance. Her clinging was suffocating. I pushed her away and said, Chaya's dead. Amy froze too. Just like me, she couldn't believe it. I left Amy's house in large strides, heading to the hospital. On the way there, I kept telling myself that maybe Ida was just trying to provoke me. After all, she was Chaya's best friend, and I really hadn't treated Chaya well. But then, I saw Chaya's lifeless body. She lay on the hospital bed, her face pale. The grief hit me like a tidal wave, completely overwhelming me. I could barely stand it. How could she be dead? How could Chaya just die? I walked up to her, wanting to touch her. But before I could get close, Chaya's father punched me hard in the face. But I didn't feel any pain. The pain was unbearable, so much so that I felt numb to everything else. Chaya's father kept yelling at me, calling me heartless, saying I owed her everything. Yes. I owed Chaya. So, Chaya, wake up, please. Wake up so I can make it up to you, okay? I collapsed to my knees, hard. I never thought Chaya's death would hit me this hard, that it would make me feel like my world had come crashing down. I didn't love her. I always thought Amy was the one I loved. Amy even saved my life once. We were in love with each other, and Chaya was just someone I settled for. But now that she's dead, why does it hurt so much? Why am I in such agony? I stayed kneeling in front of Chaya, the pain and guilt nearly consuming me. I don't know how long I knelt there in the hospital. Chaya's parents took her away. They wouldn't let me follow. They said I wasn't worthy, that I'd taint her path to heaven. I don't know when Amy arrived, but she held me and sobbed. She said she couldn't stand seeing me torture myself like this. She said Chaya's death had nothing to do with me. Yeah. Chaya's death was just an accident, not my fault. Even if I had stayed at the hospital, she would have died anyway. But why do I still feel like I've committed some unforgivable sin? Why does it still hurt so much that I can't breathe? Amy helped me up from the floor. Elroy, don't do this to yourself. She's gone, let's focus on us from now on, Amy kept trying to comfort me. A scumbag and a bitch? And you still want to be happy? A voice came from behind us. It was Ida. Amy turned to look at her and snapped, Ida, can't you see how much pain Elroy is in? Can't you stop? Fine, I'll take all the blame for Chaya. If you have a problem, take it out on me. Just leave Elroy alone. Fine, I'll take it out on you, Ida agreed instantly. And in the next moment, the quiet hospital hallway was suddenly filled with the sound of Amy and Chaya talking. I visibly trembled. At the sound of Chaya's voice, my whole body started shaking. I turned to look at Ida. The sound was coming from her phone. It wasn't Chaya alive. I listened to the conversation between Chaya and Amy. At first, I didn't feel much, just the overwhelming sadness. But as I kept listening, something felt off. Amy was starting to panic. She yelled at Ida, "What are you playing? Turn it off. Turn it off." What, scared? Ida smirked. Didn't you say to take it out on you? Turn it off. None of this is true. Turn it off. Amy lunged at Ida, trying to grab her phone. The two of them started grappling. Elroy. If you want to know the truth, then get this bitch off me. Ida screamed at me. I got up from the floor and forcefully pulled Amy away. Let go of me, Elroy. Let go. None of it's true. None of it's true. Amy was hysterical, her face flushed red, her expression twisted. This was a side of Amy I had never seen before. I always thought she was soft, delicate, the type of woman who'd crumble with a gust of wind. If it's not true, then what are you so afraid of? Ida taunted her. I just don't want Elroy to misunderstand me. Stop trying to ruin my relationship with him. Turn it off. Amy screamed. Ida sneered, ignoring Amy's outburst. She looked at me and said, "Listen closely to what Amy says next." My throat tightened, painfully so. I could hear Ida's phone loud and clear. I like him, so why would I marry someone else? That whole thing about cutting ties with my family and moving abroad was a lie. It's just because that guy's richer than Elroy. You knew all along, didn't you? Back in school, you knew. But Elroy's too blind to see who really cares about him. Luckily, this time I've made up my mind to be with him. So, Chaya, just give up. You'll never win. The recording ended. The hallway fell into an eerie silence. I must have looked terrifying. I stared at Amy, my eyes bloodshot. It's not like that, Elroy. It's not. You have to believe me. Those aren't my true feelings. I said that to provoke Chaya. She wouldn't leave you alone, so I said those things. Slap. I slapped Amy hard across the face. She fell to the ground, staring up at me in disbelief, tears welling in her eyes, looking pitiful. I used to never be able to bear seeing Amy upset, couldn't stand seeing her shed a single tear. But now, I felt nothing but disgust, a deep revulsion. Can't handle that? Ida said, watching us with amusement. There's more if you want to see it. I clenched my fists. Part of me didn't want to know, didn't dare to, but I forced myself to nod. Forced myself to face the brutal truth. See for yourself. Ida handed me her phone. I stared at the video on the screen and hit play. It was Chaya and Amy in a bathroom, from earlier tonight, right before Chaya's accident. I watched Chaya, so full of life. My vision blurred. Then, all of a sudden, Amy shoved Chaya, who was walking ahead of her, heavily pregnant and unsuspecting, hard. I watched as Chaya fell to the ground, and then I saw Amy's malicious grin, even though, in the next moment, she let out a fake scream of shock. I laughed. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. It was madness. Amy seemed terrified by my reaction. She scrambled to her feet, saw the video on my phone, and her face turned deathly pale. She kept babbling, "No, no, it's not true, Elroy. Let me explain, it wasn't me. It's Chaya. Chaya set me up. How else would there be this video? It must have been a trap. So, you commit a crime and get caught red-handed, and it's still someone else's fault? Amy, have you no shame?" Ida spat through gritted teeth. Elroy, believe me." "Ah." Amy cried as I pushed her away. All I felt was disgust, a profound sense of loathing. "I've given you everything. Whether you choose to report this or not is up to you. Chaya never wanted you to know the truth. If I hadn't found this evidence on her, she would have kept it hidden for life, all for your sake." My fists were clenched so tight, my chest felt like it was going to explode. The pain was overwhelming, ripping me apart from the inside. "Let me tell you 3 things. First, back in school, when you accidentally fell into the river, it was Chaya who risked everything to pull you out. When you woke up, you thought it was Amy. If you don't believe me, ask your classmates from that trip. They all saw it happen. Then again, why would you ask? In your mind, the only person who would risk their life for you is Amy. Second, Amy orchestrated the bullying she suffered at school to get your attention. What you probably don't know is that the person who bullied her was actually her best friend. They're still close, by the way. Check her phone if you don't believe me. Third, Chaya was diagnosed with late-stage uterine cancer a month ago. She hid it from you because she didn't want you to worry. The doctors told her to abort the baby to start treatment, but because the surgery meant she'd never be able to have kids again, she chose to risk her life to give birth to your child. In the end, both she and the baby died." Ida stared at me coldly, like I was the biggest fool in the world. She said, "Elroy, I've never met anyone as stupid as you." She turned and walked away. She probably thought someone like me wasn't worth her time. Someone as idiotic as me wasn't worth anyone's time. But Chaya, she gave her whole life for me. I turned to look at Amy. At her hideous, distorted face. I picked up my phone and dialed the number. "Hello, police? I want to report a crime. Someone attempted murder." "No." Amy frantically grabbed my phone. "Elroy, don't call the police. Please, I'm begging you. Don't call them. I can't go to jail. I can't. Elroy, everything I did was for our future. I love you. Now that Chaya is gone, we can finally be together without any obstacles." Amy couldn't finish her sentence. Because suddenly, I had my hands around her throat. Her face turned red, almost to the point of bursting, her eyes wide with terror. She tried to push me away, but she was too weak. Her face was filled with panic and fear. "Did you ever feel scared, Amy, when you plotted against me? When you pushed Chaya down, did you ever think about fear? Did you ever think this day would come? Did you ever imagine you'd get what you deserve? Amy, both of us should go down to accompany Chaya and the child who never even had a chance to be born. I killed Amy. I watched her, bit by bit, lose all signs of life in my hands, her struggle coming to a complete end. As I looked down at Amy's lifeless body, lying motionless on the ground, I didn't feel any fear. Nor did I feel sadness. All I felt was the satisfaction of revenge. I only felt relief. Later, the police came and arrested me. Premeditated murder. It should be the death penalty, right? I guess I deserve to die. Epilogue, Chaya. I didn't die. I hemorrhaged badly on the operating table, brushing against death several times, but the doctors managed to save me. Even though I survived, I was barely hanging on to life. As for the baby, of course, it was gone. Maybe he was never meant to come into this world in the first place. After I came out of surgery, I asked my parents, Ida, and the medical staff to help me stage a scene. I only told them I wanted to completely cut ties with Elroy. I didn't explain anything else. They fully supported me. That's how the scene of Elroy kneeling in front of my corpse came about. After that, my parents accompanied me to the hospital room. Ida left. I knew exactly what she was going to do. With her personality, there was no way she would let Elroy get off easily. I could even guess how much guilt and regret she would make Elroy feel. This was our unspoken understanding. You could say, everything was part of my plan. Just like how I filmed Amy pushing me down that day. That day, I deliberately told Amy I was pregnant. I knew she would do everything in her power to get rid of the baby. A baby that, to be honest, I never intended to keep. I used it to complete Amy. So, I went to the bathroom, set up a hidden camera in a corner that could capture the whole scene, and waited for the fish to take the bait. Sure enough, Amy made her move. I bled heavily and was rushed to the hospital. I even predicted that Amy would find a way to get Elroy to leave. Everything was under my control. I gave the USB drive to Ida. She would be the first to check its contents. In addition to the recording, I told Ida one more thing: there was a video on my phone showing Amy setting me up. She could download it through the camera app. Ida knew exactly what to do next. Later, I heard that Elroy killed Amy. He was arrested. I wasn't surprised at all. Given Elroy's character, how could he tolerate being deceived like that? Coupled with his guilt over me and the baby, he would resort to such an extreme response. It was all within my expectations. It was also part of my revenge. After that, I transferred to the most reputable cancer hospital in the country for another surgery and chemotherapy. Over the course of a year of treatment, the doctors said my condition had somewhat stabilized. If I took good care of myself, it wouldn't be impossible to live another 10 or even more years, like a normal person. When I came back from the hospital, I heard that Elroy had been sentenced. He wasn't given the death penalty, but life imprisonment. Life imprisonment might be even worse. I never went to see him. I'm not sure when it happened, maybe somewhere during my near-death experience on the operating table, but I realized I had truly let go of Elroy. That man had been completely uprooted from my heart, leaving no trace behind. After all, life is precious. In the days I have left, I only want to live without regret, without bitterness. The end.